We are live all the way from Mariel Talks Pub. I'm your host, Mariel Besori, and today I have a beautiful, talented, amazing guest all the way from Melbourne, Australia. We have Joanne. Welcome, Joanne.
Hi, hi everyone.
I hope you're doing great. I know this past 2 years with the COVID and the lockdown, especially Australia, has been very,
It's been such a crazy time, and every single time you think that maybe we're getting through this, it's not quite the case. And I know everyone around the world understands this. So, yes, it's definitely a very different time that we're living in, and it's tested us. It really has been, yeah, something I never thought I would ever live through in my lifetime, that is for
I
sure.
know. I
This
know.
is the stuff you'd read up on, or maybe you just don't ever think that you'd ever live through something like this. So yes, it's been an interesting time here in Melbourne, that's for sure.
Yes, I know. I read that you guys are always, like in your home, you can go out. So yeah, I know. It's been crazy for you. But for us, it's not that hard. But I know that for some countries like yours, it's been very difficult. So, well, but I'm super happy to have you on my show. I am so glad that you responded to my DMs on Instagram. And when you said yes, I was like, oh my God. So, yeah, this is happening now.
Of course, I had to. You've been absolutely lovely, and I can't think of anything better than spending my Monday afternoon chatting to you. So of course,
Oh, thank you, Joanne. I have so many questions for you because it's been 24 years since the release of Jackie. Can
yes,
you believe
I
it's been
think
that long?
23 years. Yeah, we're heading into 24. It is bizarre. It's bizarre to me because as much as time does fly, some of the memories are so vivid that it doesn't seem like that long ago. And then I'm like, but that means I'm getting older. That's not fair. Like that's just silly.
Well, I mean, we all get older, but looking back in all those years, how does it feel for you like, when you had just this number three single on the area charts and then had a lot of other singles that made it to the top 50? And now, 20 years later, how does it feel for you?
Do you know what? It feels really quite remarkable, to be honest, because when and I'm sure any music lover would relate to this. When you are a fan of someone's music or you love music so much, you know, the memories live with you. And the crazy thing for me was that I don't know, I guess being the artist, maybe I forgot being young. Jackie was released when, 1998 and I was about 19. And, being young, you don't realize what's happening around you. And sometimes, the buzz is happening and you're not quite present. And so you forget over time that your music's left an imprint on
Mm-hmm.
someone's heart or in their life. So fast forward to today, when I perform my songs now and I see the reaction and everyone is singing along and you hear the stories and you really pause and you take it in. Because, as you get older, you learn to be present and take things in. It's the most remarkable feeling because you really get a grasp on, oh my goodness, in some small way, my music's made an impact and has a place in history in some way. So it's an incredibly humbling feeling. Um,
Yes.
but it's also it's still you still pinch yourself. It doesn't matter how many years pass, you still pinch yourself for sure.
Yes. Yes. I mean, time flies like crazy. And I discovered your music, let's say like 10 years ago, because it didn't make it here in Mexico. But thanks to, social media and the chance of having Spotify with you, I got to discover your music. A friend of mine sent me your songs, and I was like, why didn't I know this before? So I was like so angry because your music didn't make it here, and I was like, damn, I wish I knew her before. And I love that
Wow.
album, and I love that album.
Well, thank you so much. It was amazing. album to be a part of, and I'm sure we'll touch on that. But yeah, I was very, very fortunate that the doors opened to me the way that they did, and yeah, you're right. I mean, now with things like Spotify, it's so easy. I mean, I love just scrolling and just seeing what's out there, and just clicking on artists, not knowing who they are, where they come from, hearing what they do. So we're very
Yeah.
fortunate that we have that access now.
Yes, I mean, years ago it was so difficult to get to know other artists unless you heard them on the radio. It was like that's what there is, and that's it. So
And also, we had to, back in the day, if you wanted an international release of someone's CD or something, you'd have to go to a specific retailer. You'd have
hmm
to order it in if it wasn't available in your country and spend like 3 times the amount, and then you'd wait for months. And now, it's just really easy. Punch someone's name in it, and there it is. So
yes,
we're very lucky.
and now I'm talking to you, so it's crazy.
Crazy.
So tell me about your beginning. How were you like discovered, or did you audition for someone? How was your beginning in the music industry?
It's quite an interesting story. It definitely is a case of whether people want to call it fate, the stars aligning, whatever it may be. I was in school, so I had always sung. I'd sung since probably as early as I could speak. I didn't really notice or think that I had anything unique or special because I just thought everyone sang.
Mm-hmm.
And I did dance classes as a child, and loved dancing. But really, it was in high school. In high school, I really discovered my passion for music, and it was through a dance injury and not being able to dance that I was like, well, if I can't dance, I'm going to sing. And so I basically started performing for the first time in front of crowds.
Mm-hmm.
And the response was quite great. And I had a family friend who was already in a girl group, and she had management and all this. And I'm still in school. She
Mm-hmm.
finished school, and she had said to me, look, I really love to show you what a recording studio looks like. I would
Mm-hmm.
love to be able to take you in, and you can see, what that world looks like. And I was completely blown away.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never seen a studio. I'd never been behind that kind of a mic before. So I went in my school uniform. I looked like such a nerd. Like, if you can imagine, like, the blazer and the tie and the bow in my hair, like the whole thing. And so I went in, and I'd never seen anything like it. And I was really fortunate that they put me behind the mic just to be kind. Like, come on, kid, jump behind there. Let's let her have a little sing. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I basically sang. And the producers were like, whoa, this kid's got some guts.
Mm-hmm.
And the management were there. And to cut a very long story short, what ended up happening was, from that really just impromptu visit to a studio, I got a phone call 4 days later from the management saying, look, we think you should have a career in music because you've got quite a gift with that voice.
Mm-hmm.
Are you interested? So I went from being a regular kid finishing high school, who probably would have done the responsible thing and gone to university straight after. But I obviously always had this passion for music, and I always had this passion for songwriting and this passion for singing. And so what ended up actually happening was I decided to give it a go, and the rest is history. So it all happened quite quickly, because after high school, it was like a year and a half of learning the craft,
Mm-hmm.
getting in the studio. The best vocal training you could ever have is behind the mic, because
Mm-hmm.
you hear yourself in a completely different way.
Mm-hmm.
So, learning to work with producers, learning how to collaborate, learning how to write your songs and have them brought to light with a great team. And it was sort of like the grassroots start of everything before we had the opportunity to do my first single, which was Jackie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was about to ask you about Jackie. Why Jackie? Because I know it's a cover, And
Yes.
did you decide to release Jackie or to record it or?
No, so I had nothing to do with the choice of the song. What had happened is that I was already working on my own original music at the time, which was actually more in the R&B soul vein,
Okay.
because that was a lot of the stuff I'd grown up listening to. And the producers that I was working with at the time had told me that they were going to do this cover of this song called Jackie, and I didn't know what it was. My older sister knew the song, and
Mm-hmm.
they played it to me, and I was like, oh yeah. And they trialed some vocalists, and it for some reason just wasn't meshing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just by chance that one day I was, in the studio, and I had said to them, oh, you know what, I think it should be sung like this. And so I just started singing.
Okay.
And then they looked at me and went, oh my gosh, you should be doing this song. And so it ended up being that we decided that I was going to record it. We did not know that it was going to be this massive single. We thought vinyl club release.
Mm-hmm.
I was told, you know what, you just keep doing your R&B thing, keep recording and writing all that stuff. This
Mm-hmm.
is just going to be an opportunity to do something a bit different. It's still your voice. It's a dance track. We're going to put it out there on vinyl, underground club sort of thing. So I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
great.
Mm-hmm.
But then what ended up happening was the song became so massive on the club scene that then a lot of those club DJs started playing it on radio. So a lot of the club DJs had radio shows at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Then people start calling up the radio stations and asking, where can we buy this song? And they were told, oh, it's only on vinyl. So then what happened, because of the demand, we ended up releasing it as a single on CD at the time
Mm-hmm.
because people wanted it, and the song just skyrocketed up the charts. So what was thought to be this underground little track ended up being the song that actually launched my career, and it was such an unbelievable shock. Never saw that coming. Happened
Mm-hmm.
very, very quickly. But yeah, my manager was right. And I remember when we first spoke about Jackie and me singing the song, I was a little apprehensive because my roots and in music was, although they were dance and there was some disco and there was pop, I was so in my own world at the time
Mm-hmm.
with R&B that my head was trying to get my head around stepping out of the genre. And my manager was great. He was like, listen, your voice is your voice. It doesn't matter what you sing, that is your voice telling the story. So don't get too caught up in the genre.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the song and the story and tell the story in your own way. So I'm glad that I took the chance to do it.
And see what happened. I mean, Jackie became the best-selling single of 1998, nine.
Yeah, highest selling single of 1998, which was insane.
Yes.
Absolutely insane.
And you won an ARIA award for that.
Yes. So we have an award show here, called the ARIA Awards. It's the equivalent of the award shows over there, and that particular year, being nominated for that particular award, Silverchair were also nominated. There was a group called Human Nature,
Yes.
Bachelor Girl,
Bachelor Girl.
Savage Garden. So these are international acts. So, to be nominated in the same category as these artists that you respect so much is obviously such an honour. And for me, I was a newcomer at the time. But to hear your name called out is the biggest treat. So I attended this award show. I got to perform for the first time. I got nominated and I got to take an award home. So I was a very happy girl.
Yeah. That must have been like such a thrill being 19 years old and having already a best-selling single and winning an ARIA award. I mean, you were like super popular and in New Zealand too.
It was amazing. It was such a crazy ride, to start your career like that. And I was very blessed, very, very blessed. And I got to work with an amazing crew, amazing people, amazing dancers. And look, my producer at the time and the production team that I worked with it was just a dream. It really was.
You had it all, Joanne, because I was watching your videos earlier this week to get, like freshen up because sometimes I listen to a lot of music and I have to watch Joanne's videos. And I was watching the Jackie video and I'm like, this girl can dance. I mean, you have the moves.
Look, I really enjoy dancing. It's hard for me to keep still. I've always been that person that is so driven by rhythm. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's hard for me to keep still. I can't. I actually struggle. When we used to do videos, and sometimes they'd be like, "Okay, can you just stand there and look cute?" And I'm thinking, I can't just stand here. Like, are these people mad? Like, because I just don't know how to keep still. So yeah, I do really love dancing. I don't think I would have been able to pursue a professional career in dance.
Mhm.
That is some serious work, but I do absolutely love choreographing and being a part of performing and dancing in shows and videos, things like that. I do enjoy it. But definitely prefer to be the singer who can dance.
Mhm.
It's a lot more enjoyable.
Well, you had it all, Joanne. I mean, it was like the voice, which is like super powerful, and then also the songwriting skills, which we will get there, and then the dancing skills, the looks. I mean, Joanne.
Oh, thank you very much. You're too kind.
No, I'm being honest. I mean, totally. I think that every artist should have like a bit of everything, and there are artists that only have like one single thing, and they may be like very good looking, but out of talent, and you have the talent and the looks. So
That's really sweet. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And then came the chance for you to write your own songs because I know that you wrote most of the songs from your album "Do Not Disturb," which is an amazing pop production. Everybody, if you guys haven't listened to it, please do and do yourself a favor and listen to that gem because I mean, damn. And you had the chance to write your own songs, and then how was it for you to listen to them, to sing it, to sing those songs?
It's amazing. And you know what? I was very fortunate. So at that time, record companies that used to have, you'd get a lot of, cassettes. Actually, back then it was cassettes and CDs that would get
Mhm.
sent in for artists to listen to. And it would be, all of these catalogue of songs that other artists or maybe other songwriters had written to pitch to artists to
Mhm.
actually take the songs and record them. And at the time, we listened to a lot of these songs, trying to pick songs for the album. And one thing that my management were always big on was development. And I guess there was the whole thing of give songwriting a go,
Mhm.
and try and tell your own stories and try and put your own take on things. And although recording other people's songs is great and it's amazing, if there was an opportunity to do it, it's it's not just smart from a business point of view, but
Mhm.
it's also a great thing to do for your own development. So I had been writing, as I mentioned, doing this R&B sort of, sort of tracks, and then what ended up happening was because Jackie took off, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, we need a pop album.
Mhm.
And so I had to sway the direction, and I was like, okay, this is people want to feel good. And at the time, I'm like, you know what, I'm young. What do I want to write about? And at the time, to be fair, I didn't have a great deal of life experience.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
I wasn't going to, I didn't have the capacity to write truthfully about certain things because I hadn't gone through it yet.
Mhm.
So my whole thing was, I'm going to write about what I know. So I wrote some up-tempo party songs. I wrote about, observations of relationships, that experience of falling in love for the first time, being cheated on, and having a sense of humor with that because, I was like, I'm not ready to say how I really feel, but I'm going to have some humor with it and make it lighthearted and funny. And then towards the tail end of the album, because some time had passed in writing all these songs, that was when I really dug deep and wrote from the heart of probably being present in my feelings, with a song called I Don't Know, which was the last song that was released off the album. And I really, when I wrote that song, I was in my feelings. So it was a really great experience to sort of touch on writing for fun, using your imagination, but then also writing in the moment, in your feelings. So I'm very fortunate that I had the opportunity to write. And it is, like you were saying, what's it like to have people listen to it now and to hear the song come to life? You go through so many versions of the songs. You know, sometimes you go in with the idea and it might be, you hear it in your head a certain way, then you work with the producers and you bring the song to life, you work on some beats, you work on, you know, some beautiful chords, and you add guitars and add bass, and it takes the song to a whole nother level. So sometimes the way you hear it and the way that it ends up, it's a whole different song, but you fall in love with it all over again. So sometimes there's a few versions of a song before you hear the album version or the single version.
I'm so glad that you told me that you really enjoy the process of writing those songs, and that you felt connected with what you were writing, because that's what you were living in the moment. And I hate it when music critics say, "Oh, not about you, but other pop artists that release similar songs about being in love and, you know, heartbreak and stuff," and they say, "Oh, they're singing so many cheesy stuff." I mean, what were they expecting for you to sing about? I mean, you were 19, 20. I mean, like you said, you didn't have that much experience.
I really didn't. I didn't, and my capacity to, and I think that that's the thing, is that when you're really young, and if you're like me, I mean, I grew up listening to, you know, I was an obsessive Mary J. Blige fan. I loved Jodeci, you know, and I also had an older sister who used to pump Anita Baker, Luther Vandross all the time. And so I was listening to those tracks and loving those songs. But there's a maturity, I guess, that, you know, especially when we're talking about Luther Vandross and Anita Baker, there's a maturity that came to those songs and those stories. And there I am, a teenager, and I'm trying to emulate those artists, and really, I had to discover myself. And you've seen my videos, you've seen me perform. I'm energetic, and I'm kind of like this, you know, I don't know, ball of Skittles or something, where it's just like, you know, I'm quite a little bit of a firecracker when I'm on stage. So it doesn't really make sense that I would be this serious, stand there in my feelings performer, although there's a time and a place for it. But I think if I was continuing to tap into what I was influenced by too much without discovering myself at that age, there is that danger of singing things that you don't relate to, maybe, you know, falling into things where you're copying another artist. And we all look up to other artists. You have people you admire.
Of course.
But you really have to try and find your feet and say something relevant. And obviously what I sing about and what I would write about today is obviously going to be very different to what I would have said at that age, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, it was so great because a lot of people connected with your songs too. Because I mean, young people that was listening to your music back in the day felt the same way as you did. So that's great because you got to connect with people, and you got 5 singles besides Jackie.
So there was Jackie, there was Pack Your Bag.
So then
Are You Ready? There was a duet with the boys from Islander for the Wog Boys soundtrack, which was called Breaking There's No Stopping Us.
Yes.
Then there was Busted, So Damn Fine, and then I Don't Know. So it was a total of 6 over a period of between 98 and about 2002. There were all those songs. So it was a really amazing time. But it's having that feeling of people still resonating. And I guess, you know, at the time I was so caught up in I have to write what makes sense, what makes sense for me. The interesting thing is it still makes sense now. that whilst I had a young approach with the songs at the time,
Mm-hmm.
people still relate to all those topics now anyway, and it's just written in a
Yes.
really fun way that people seem to still really enjoy, which is really great. Very,
Yeah.
very happy.
Totally. And now, did you decide which singles were going to be released, or was that the record label? Because I think that all the choices were great.
Oh, thank you. Look, it was a bit of both. I will say this, sometimes what happens is sometimes you just know when a song's going to be a single.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just something happens where you're in the demo stage and you all look at each other and it's like, ooh, this is something, and sometimes it's just quite obvious that something should be a single. Other times what you want to be the single isn't necessarily the case, because you've got, especially if you're signed or distributed by a major sometimes with these
Mm-hmm.
labels, often what happens is that, they might hear something, maybe they hear it and think, you know what, it's not commercial enough. Can you maybe do a remix on it and make it more commercial? Sometimes that happens. So sometimes it takes going back to the drawing board in those days anyway, where you would end up doing remixes of the song until it had that radio edge.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the time it ended up being a case of, it was quite obvious. I think nowadays it's very different, because I think nowadays it's the era of independent artists,
Yes.
putting out what they want to put out. Back then it was a little bit different, because you had your input, but then there was also it was very much, the idea was massage of, this is what the song should be, this is how it should sound, this is what the image should be. So it was one of those things where at times that was difficult, because at times you may feel in your heart, I really believe in this song and I really believe it should be sung a certain way and produced a certain way. And from a vocal point of view, I was pretty fortunate in terms of how songs were sung and so forth. That was sort of, that was my thing. And I was left to arrange the songs as they were vocally. But it is hard when people do intervene and you're close to it. You've heard it in your head a certain way, you've written it, and now people want to change it, and you get all up in your emotions because you're like, no, but I want it to sound like this. But you also trust. Sometimes you trust, and you go, well, everyone else is saying this. Maybe I need to step back. And look, sometimes that works, and sometimes you were right all along.
Well, yeah, it's just part of the whole experience. But you were okay with the decisions, right?
I was, because I trusted at that age that there were certain things where, yes, I had this talent and had been blessed with certain gifts, and yes, I had the ability to write and all of those things, but at the same time, I was very much made aware that the powers that be were the decision makers. And I think because I was young, and a lot of young artists go through this, you don't want to be difficult. You don't want to be a person that challenges, because you want to be not so much a people pleaser, but you're just so, how lucky you are to be in that position, that you just want to cherish it. So you're trying really hard to play the game gently so that you're asking questions but not appearing difficult. And I think that that's something that I've learned from now, because now I realise you should ask questions. If you're not comfortable with something, you say so. And that it's by no means difficult if someone's trying to express and create. But it's that balance, isn't it? Because, you want to push your point and ask questions, but at the same time, you want to have an open mind, because sometimes in being open with other people in the creative process, magic happens.
Yes.
Totally.
But well, I think the decisions, like I was telling you, I think that the whole singles choices were great. I mean, very well chosen, because sometimes I hear albums and when they release the singles, I'm like, why did they release that song? I mean, they should have released that one and that one. And from your album, I think those were great choices. And I would have released Phony Baloney. I love that song.
Oh, that's a fun song.
I would have loved that as a single. And what's your favorite song from the album? I mean, tell us about.
Wow. I think I mentioned I don't know before that for that one's got a sentimental pull for me,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just because the memories of writing it are very vivid, and I think that it represented because it was the last song that I wrote for that album. My life experience at that point was quite different. So from a
Mm-hmm.
sentimental point of view, I will say that that song has transcended in the sense there's several meanings for it. You know, for me, it was about loss and change in a relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
to other people who've heard it, they've told me that they've lost someone, you know, actually lost someone who's passed on and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or it just represents different forms of loss and grief for different people. So that
Mm-hmm.
one bit had quite a sentimental heartstring pull for me. But, you know, I love performing So Damn Fine. It's great song to perform. Phony Baloney was always a favourite to perform live. That was awesome fun. Yeah, I think my favourites change, you
Mm-hmm.
know, depending. But and obviously I have to say Jackie performing Jackie today is
Yes.
even more of a trip than performing it back then. It is, you know, to stop singing and to point that mic at the crowd and hear a massive
Mm-hmm.
crowd singing that back is bananas.
Surreal,
Yes,
surreal. Totally.
yes.
Yeah, I think that the whole album is great. I mean, I have here the list because I don't have it physically, which is a shame. But all through the night, it's a great song too. It's I mean, your songs were so like party related, which I loved. I mean, starting from So Damn Fine, which is like a club anthem, and then all through the night, and you have also beautiful ballads like Let's Go Back, You, which you wrote too. If He Were Mine, I love that song. It has like those R&B vibes. I love that song.
That was actually the first song I ever wrote.
Oh,
That
really?
one. Yeah, if he were mine, I actually remember, and I giggle about it now. One of my friends had this, you know, boyfriend,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just a really sweet boy, you know, really,
Mm-hmm.
really sweet. And she was always just annoyed and carrying on, and it was kind of like from the outside looking in, we were always kind of like, do you not see that you have this gold mine of a man? And that
Mm-hmm.
was what triggered that song. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that I wanted the guy for myself. It wasn't even about that, but it was more a point of, you know, if
What
I
if?
had a guy like that, I
Yeah.
would cherish that because that's very rare. So that was
Oh.
where that song came from. That was the first song I ever experimented with writing for
Oh.
that particular album. That was If You Were Mine.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good one. And what kind of friend are you? Is also that song that you are supposed to be my friend, but then you're playing behind my back. I mean, I love that one.
Well, a funny point about that song was that it was written about a real person,
Oh.
and the real person came to my album launch to tell me that that was her favorite song off the album and did not realize it was about her.
Okay. Whoa.
Kind of ironic. I think to
Whoa.
this day she doesn't know that it's about her. So
If she's watching
yeah.
this, well, come on. Yes, I mean it
Yeah.
was completely written for her. Okay.
Yeah.
Cause you can. I mean, you didn't write that one, but I like that one. Cause you can. Don't go breaking
That
my heart
song,
just because you know you can. I love that one.
yeah, that was one of the songs that I'd actually personally selected. The guy that wrote it also wrote Physical, Brilliant Newton John. I think he wrote Genie in a Bottle as well.
Mm,
And yeah, so I heard that a demo stage it was sent in and just fell in love with that track. And I kept annoying my manager going, I really want to do that song. And it was one of the ones where they were like, yeah. And I was like, and I was just nagging, going, please,
uh-huh.
please, I love that track. And then I finally annoyed them enough that we got to do the track.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And then we have, well, Are You Ready, which was one of your singles. It's a very fun song. I mean, I love watching the video. You were like super crazy and dancing and stuff. And uh, I love the vibe of that song. And it is blended, if I'm not mistaken, with Hot Hot Crazy.
Yeah, so what we did for the album was that, sometimes we would release a single and there'd be like 4 or 5 remixes. And
Mm-hmm.
by the time, so Are You Ready and Jackie were released like, 98, 99. By
Mm-hmm.
the time my album dropped, it was already 2001. So it was kind of one of those things where some of the tracks were updated. So the album version of Jackie is
It's
different to
different.
the single edit of Jackie. And
Mm-hmm.
with Are You Ready, the decision was made to just do something different with it and put a different version on the album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there was that lag. I'd done a couple of singles, and then after doing a couple of singles, there was that whole, okay, now I've got to write an album, and there was sort of like a pause period before I started releasing singles again and dropping the album. So
Mm-hmm.
we had quite a bit of time, I guess, between the first single and the album and songs like Busted and So Damn Fine coming out. It had
Mm-hmm.
been a couple of years difference between Jackie and
Mm-hmm.
that period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, yeah, but the final version, I mean, from the album, it's really cool, and the Hot Hot Crazy, I love that one too. Um, my favorite, my personal favorite, Busted.
Yeah.
I
So
love
that
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 song.
is that song is based on truth. It's toned down. It's toned down to make it a bit more playful. But
Okay.
I caught my boyfriend cheating, and I took what was obviously a painful experience,
Uh-huh.
but decided I was like, you know what, I'm going to write about it, but I want to make light of it because, a lot of the time some of us cope with things by having a sense of humor, which is very me.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you know what, how do I write about this experience that's actually quite raw and painful, but let me try and make light of it and make it fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was where Busted came from.
I love it. I adore it. I have actually dedicated that song because I've been in that same position too before I got married. So it was like years ago. But I've been there, and every time I listened to that song back in the day, I was like, "Yeah, you deserve that song. You deserve those lyrics."
Yeah.
And I want to be like Joanne in her video, walking like in this red outfit and dancing and stuff. It's like amazing.
Oh, it's like, I tell you what, it's one of those things where it's like, you know what, I'm not a vindictive person, but you shouldn't date a songwriter because you never know. You might turn up to one of their songs. But look,
Totally.
he got off easy. He got a cute, light-hearted, fun song out of it. It could have been far worse.
Yes, but it's so cheesy, so catchy. I love it. I was playing the video, and my daughter was with me. She's one, and I suddenly turned to look at her, and it was like na 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 na, na, and she was like this. So I love that
Yeah.
because she was
Oh,
moving
that's
to the song.
great.
Yes, and she's one, so I love that
Oh, well, hey, this is good. If your 1-year-old likes the song, we're on to something.
one. Yes. Then this beautiful song, you
Mhm.
also wrote that one. Tell us about that
That one, so the boyfriend that I was with, the non-cheater who did not cheat, no, there was a relationship that I was in, and I don't know, it was a song from that same relationship, and You was actually written in the honeymoon period of the relationship where everything
one.
is just so blissful and wonderful, and you think it's going to last forever and nothing's ever going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where You came from. And it was different to me because I used to write about, there's certain things I organically write about very easily.
Mm-hmm.
I can write about, partying very easily. I can write about, anthems, like girl anthems very easily. I can write about pain and heartache very easily. But when it comes to writing about happiness and
Mm-hmm.
being in love, and I don't know, it's interesting. I often ask other songwriters or people who create this question because I often wonder, because I'm by nature as a human a very expressive, person who wears my heart on my sleeve and tells people how I feel organically all the time. I often wonder, is that why when I'm creating and I'm writing music, it doesn't come out? Because I do it all the time. You know, so You's probably one of the few songs where I actually am writing about how I feel in the happy phase.
Okay, yes.
Because yeah, for some reason I don't know. I don't know if it's that the creative part of the brain is a whole different beast
Hmm.
where the emotions. I don't know. I've often wondered that. But yeah,
But it's a
but I write
beautiful.
about it is a lovely song, but it is interesting how creatively one can gravitate more towards writing about certain topics
Mhm.
naturally, even if it's the opposite of what your personality is. It's quite funny.
Good. And pack your bags.
Pack Your Bags was the second single off Do Not Disturb. Great song. Really, really feel good song. I loved doing that video clip so much. It was
Hmm.
done in a warehouse. It was very hot in there. There was no windows. It was over 40 degrees, and that wasn't fun. But amazing experience co-writing on that one for sure.
Yes, it's a very emotional song too. I mean, I love the chorus. I love it. So pack your bag. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
We have, well, I don't know, you already told me about that story, and we have Jackie and Phony Baloney. You also wrote that one.
Yes. So Funny Baloney is another comedic, quirky. It's a fun, you know, twist on. I guess you could say it's another, cheating song. It's a boy that continually fibs and can't
Hmm.
cover his tracks and
Hmm.
keeps getting caught out. Which look, I'm sure as a female, we've all met that boy at some point in our life.
Yes.
So yeah, that was actually really, really, really fun to write, and also it was one of the tracks where I was adamant. I'm like, I'm rapping on this song, like, I have to because I love rap. So that was really, really fun to be able to sort of throw some rap verses in and have some fun with it.
Yeah. I like I told you, it should have been a single, would have been a smash hit. I know.
I have to tell them that you were wrong. Mariel said it should have been a single.
From Mexico City, she says.
She
Well,
knows. She said so.
yes, I mean, it's great. And Let's Go Back, which is also a ballad, and you wrote. It's also beautiful. Let's go back, way back to the way things used to be. And so I
Oh,
like.
it's got different meaning now, doesn't it? Back to a simpler time, and that's what the song is about. It's that, I guess, that coming of age thing that happens where you suddenly realise that life is challenging. And
Hmm.
I think that for a lot of us when we're young, you live in this reality, and then one day something happens, whether it's just that life happens and you suddenly realize what responsibility feels like, what loss feels like, what challenge really is.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what Let's Go Back is about, is about remembering the simpler times where you were just carefree and didn't worry about anything. And
Hmm.
you just lived and you laughed and you smiled. So it was a reflective song.
Nowadays, everyone should be listening to that
Yeah.
song, right?
Nowadays, it has a very different meaning. It's like, oh my goodness, let's go back to 2 years ago.
Yes, please. I know. And All Through the Night, even though you didn't write that one, it's a very cool song too. I love that song. All Through the Night,
Which
so
one, sorry?
heartache. Uh,
Oh, All Through the Night. Yes, yes,
yes.
All Through the Night. I was really fortunate with All Through the Night and Don't Stay. Were two tracks on the album where the boys that were under the same management as myself, the boys from
Hmm.
Islander, had
Hmm.
actually written those tracks and were working on them for their project.
Hmm.
And I had heard them and loved them so much, and they were kind enough to share. And so I ended up putting my own flavour into them and collaborating a bit so that I could bring those songs to life in my own way. So that was
Hmm.
very fortunate. They are
Yeah.
great songs.
Yes, it's a very cool song. And finally, So Damn Fine, which is, like I told you, my second favorite and a club anthem. I love how it starts. I mean, your voice is like, whoa. Uh, Hey Superfly, give this lonely girl a try. I love the beginning of the song.
That was a really fun song to write. I really wanted to capture something that was just, you know, feel good, you know, just that when you catch that moment of that spark of, you know, being out, seeing someone, and it's just like sparks fly. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was just a really fun way to put that experience into song.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to do a big vocal song too. I wanted to do a song where I could, you know, show off my vocal range, so to speak. And I wanted it to be a real anthem and a song where people could just sing along and it
Mm-hmm.
felt great. And I wanted it to just be energetic. And what it ended up being, the way the song felt musically as well, it's just a song that I'm really proud of. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, even performing it today in my shows, the crowd love it. So
Yes, I
it's
think
been,
it's a
I'm
fan
very
favorite.
lucky.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fan favorite, yes.
And which one of your videos is your favorite?
Oh, I really do love Pack Your Bags as a
Mm-hmm.
video. The way that it's shot, I love the way that it's shot. And I do love So Damn Fine, and I do like I Don't Know for different reasons. I think that the beauty of doing videos is it's interesting as the artist too, because you see the finished product, but you always also remember the experience of doing the video as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Don't Fine was a great experience because we've flown over to Bali and spent
Whoa.
5 days over there and shot, you know, in another country, in another destination, and we were based at the Hard Rock um, in Bali, and so to shoot there and also go into the temples and shoot outside and in an international destination was a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I love those videos. I love the way that they're shot. I love how you work with other people and they capture certain moments
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
storyline. It's quite a beautiful experience.
What I love about your videos is that we can see a different side of you, like like physically. From the Jackie video, you were having this curly hair, this crazy hairdo, and then on Busted, you have your hair more like um, how you call
Like
it
a slow wave.
yes, yes. And on the Southern Fine, you look like more blonde. I mean, I love seeing that on all of your videos to see all those faces of you not staying the same.
I
I
think
think that's
that's
great from an
my
artist.
I think that's my personality is that I'm very expressive, and I will admit it was difficult because I am that person that constantly wants to express myself through what I wear. So
Mm-hmm.
whether it's, you know, nails, whether it's hair, whether it's, you know, the most ridiculous, you know, mixing fabrics together that don't make sense, but I want it to make sense. Like I've always been that person. And so it was sometimes challenging because I would see myself one way and want to do one thing,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe other people were like, no, but your image is this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you appreciate, you know, the different looks. But yeah, the image is hard for an artist. Image is really, really difficult because
Yes.
if you're still trying to figure out who you are, and then others are trying to put an image on you and saying this is what you should be, and sometimes the image and how the performer performs doesn't quite match. And I know I struggled with that because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time a focus might have been made on the face or on something being quite cute or quite pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But as a performer, I always felt quite fierce. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes I was like, you know, I want to be more edgy because
Mm-hmm.
that felt more like me as a performer. But I also know obviously marketing comes into it when you're young too, and they look at you like you're a package. Essentially, as
Yes.
hard
Mm-hmm.
as it is for people to understand it, it's a package, and they want it to be marketed a certain way and look a certain way. So sometimes I had a say, and sometimes I trusted what was being done and was like, okay, all
Yeah,
right.
but I applaud that. I mean, that you took the chance to use different looks for all your videos. I mean, that's great that you wanted to experience with that. So that's great. And now moving to the sad part, why didn't you release more music, Joanne?
Oh, you know what? It's a really simple story. I had taken a break. I had started out quite young,
Mm-hmm.
and even though my journey, in terms of duration of years, it wasn't a long duration of years, but because I'd gone straight from school into this career, and I actually was a workaholic. I really was. I worked so hard during that period of time,
Mm-hmm.
and things had happened so quickly. And it was a weird time, and I guess for anyone, at that age, it's a strange time. But I think what had happened for me was that I started to question whether I had missed out on some life experience
Mm-hmm.
outside of the music industry, because my life became consumed by the music industry, and I was watching people around me get married, have children. I
Mm-hmm.
was watching, little cousins growing up and I'd missed the experience, or, things like that. And for some reason it affected me quite badly. And
Mm-hmm.
so my intention was to take a short break, and life happened and the short break was not short. But
Mm-hmm.
what some people don't realize is that whilst I stopped releasing music and I wasn't out there as an artist, out on the scene, I actually was still performing. I never stopped singing. I was still performing several times a week,
Mm-hmm.
um, and for a long period of time. And then in the last few years, I've had that annoying feeling in my belly. It's like fire that burns in your belly, where the creative juices start to flow.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when that happens, it's like, okay, it's time. Something's brewing here. So as much as using my voice and performing has still satisfied me, that creative process I've missed so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm definitely in a place now where creating is part of that, and I would love to get music back out there again. Obviously, we're in a different reality at this exact moment with this lovely COVID situation that we're in.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, it's amazing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what creatively comes out of me at this point in my life.
I
I
would
can't
love
wait.
to hear something new from you. I was about to ask you if you have plans of releasing new music or a new album. I think us fans would be like super thrilled to have you back after all these years. Uh, and hear now what you have to say, because now, like you mentioned before, you didn't experience much when you were 19, but now 20 years later, you've been through a lot of stuff and you can sing about different situations, which is great.
Yeah, I think there's the life experience part of it, and I think there's also who I am as a person. I think that I would, there are certain things that maybe as a songwriter I was nervous to say
Mhm.
back then, because it's kind of like, oh, that might be too this or too that. You're so caught in your head thinking so much. Whereas now it's, and it comes with age in general. As you get older, you get to know yourself better,
Mhm.
and so
Mhm.
that what the parameters are. So and that comes down to image. It comes down to the songs, the sound. Now you have more of a voice to say, well, actually, yeah, I can be all those characters because it's all me anyway. Or
Mhm.
you can really show the different parts of your feelings, personality, and not be scared to do so. So it's a beautiful thing that happens with time and with age. So
Mhm.
I've been very excited. So it's been nice to sort of be writing again. Um, yeah, and I can't wait to see what eventuates and hopefully get some new sounds out there.
That would be great. So stay tuned on Joanne's social media. Is Joanne Music, right? On
That's correct.
Instagram.
Music
Yeah.
with a K.
with a
Joanne
K.
Music with a K on the end. Yes.
Stay tuned, guys, because we can't wait to see what's coming from you.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited. It's a really interesting time that we're in. I mean, artists are doing a lot of different things at the moment. You know, we've had, tours and shows aren't happening. As you're aware, a lot of artists are now looking at, well, what else can I do? So I've been loving these experiences. I get to meet beautiful people from around the world and talk about my career, and so a lot of artists are looking at, focusing on different projects, whether it's, podcasts. Some of them are now doing their own and talking outside of music. Others are looking at merchandising opportunities because, it's a strange time where we can't really rely on the shows or the tours happening because of our current situation. So it's probably a good time to create now because we've got some time to do it.
Yes, totally. And how does it feel for you when you reach out with your fans that have been following your career for years? It must be a very good feeling, man, to see them grow up with you.
It's a really beautiful feeling. I've got a couple of fans that used to actually, back in the day when there was a physical fan club that used to handle the actual mail. A couple of those fans really have followed me, and we still communicate today. And one of those fans, he was a young boy, and he used to write letters to me every single week. And I actually got to meet him in person again a few years ago.
Okay.
And I was blown away. It was such an emotional experience because, now he's like grown, he's in his mid-30s. And it was just unbelievable to think that, oh my gosh, you were that boy that used to come to all the shows. So it's a beautiful experience to have that loyalty and that love and that support. I get a bit emotional. So I was really emotional when I saw him, and we got to actually chat. And he brought all his CDs with him, and they were all signed from back then. And then he asked, can you sign them all again, but put the U on it? So it's quite amazing to have.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I mean, to have people grow with your music, it's amazing. I know totally the feeling of being there, your fans being there for you. I mean, totally get it.
It's a lovely feeling. I'm very blessed to have had that opportunity. I guess it was just God's plan because, it's not an experience that everyone gets to have. So I'm very thankful that I was given that.
Yes, and you have a fan here in Mexico City.
I know. I need to come. So I need to, God, if you're listening, I need to get to Mexico City. Thank you.
Yes, you gotta be here, and I can show you around. You will love it here.
I am sure I'm in very good hands. I would love to come out and see you.
That would be great. And you had the chance also, before we jump into something else, to tour with other pop acts from the early 2000s, like?
Okay, so my first ever tour that I ever did, I supported RuPaul, and that was an amazing experience. I've also toured with Destiny's Child, I've toured with Craig David, I've toured with Shaggy, I've toured with Emma Bunton from the Spice Girls. Gosh, who else? But it was an amazing time because. And this is the thing. Back then, there was so much opportunities for not just tours, but also just so many TV shows. And I'm not sure what it's like over there, but I know that here there were like morning shows, evening shows, weekend shows, and music and artists being performing on those shows was very popular.
Yes.
Now it doesn't happen as much. So it was an amazing time to be touring because you get these amazing opportunities to either support or do tours with other artists. So back then I did those tours, and about 4 years ago I did an amazing tour with the Venga Boys and Crystal Waters, Sonique, Tina Cousins and Wheatfield. We did a tour around Australia and New Zealand. That was an amazing experience because these are artists who have been doing it for years, and I was touring with them, and it was great to actually not be newcomers and
Mhm.
be touring together because it's different. You know how to be present. You're not nervous and panicking like, you know, when you're younger, you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to remember this, I've got to remember that, and
Mhm.
you know, but when you're, you know, accomplished and you've got experience, you just know what you're doing, you know. And so for me, that tour was beautiful because the connection with the others, I've made lifelong friends with a lot of these guys. So
Mhm.
I had an amazing experience. But yeah, you learn a lot from other artists. It's an amazing experience to sort of not only have them watch you and appreciate what you're doing, but to learn from what they do and
Mhm.
how they operate, and amazing experience and a great energy. If you're supporting another artist or working with another artist, the crowd is nuts. Great.
Mhm. Well, you had a great chance to tour with all these amazing pop stars, which is great. I mean, wow, what an experience for you. Um, did you get a chance to tour with the girls of from Bordeaux?
I did actually. So we've done, what have we done? We did the Rumba tour um, in 2001, I think,
Uh-huh.
together. The girls were at the height of their popularity as well at that time. And it was
Mhm.
probably the first time, um, I think it was the first time Australia had seen a reality group to that capacity. Because that
Mhm.
was from our first pop star show that the girls
Yes.
had come about. So we actually toured together, and I think we used to sometimes cross paths at TV shows. I'd be performing, they'd be performing on the same show.
Mm.
And I've caught up with Katie a couple of times over the last couple of years because she's
Mhm.
Melbourne based as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
And obviously, you know, she's back out there creating again. So it's a really nice opportunity to sort of reconnect now,
Mhm.
remember the great times that we all had, and have a laugh, but it's also see how far we will come in life, and also to see where we're going to go creatively. It's a very exciting time.
Yes, Australia actually has a lot of great pop stars that unfortunately are not known worldwide. I mean, sometimes some Australian pop singers remain only in Australia or in New Zealand or probably, I don't know, some Asian countries. But you don't get to be heard worldwide, which is a shame because there's a lot of pop talent over there. I mean, there's you, there's the girls of Bardot, Holy Balance. Mm,
Yes,
who I love, Gabriella Chilmi, who is amazing too. I mean,
amazing. Yes.
yes, you have a lot of pop stars over there, and you don't get the recognition you guys deserve.
Oh, thank you. I think what sometimes happens is I think this happens with a lot of artists in different territories around the world, is that they release, you know, say the first album or the first couple, and maybe it's restricted to a certain territory, and then maybe later on they go global. And I think, you know, that was my intention. But as I said, I had this pause in my life where I hit pause. But look, I'm very thankful. You know, like you were saying with Spotify, it's quite remarkable how many people are reaching out now
Hmm.
from different places in the world, you know, who are coming across my music. So it is a very different time.
Yes, thank God for Spotify, for all those musical platforms, digital platforms, because we get to listen to a lot of things we missed from back in the day. So
That's
yeah.
right.
And now about your influences, this is a question I always ask to all my guests. Tell me who's your favorite female singer?
Ooh, um, I'm still going to say Mary J.
Okay, Mary
I'm
J.
still
Blige.
going to say Mary J. I love Mary J. From the perspective of that rawness.
Mm-hmm.
There is a vulnerability and a rawness in the emotion of the way that woman sings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was blessed to go see her live a couple of years ago, and it reminded me why I loved her, you know, as a kid, and why I thought she was amazing. So I'm going to say Mary J is my favorite female for sure.
And your
And I guess Janet from an iconic
yes,
performance perspective,
totally.
and obviously I'm obsessed with all her songs. So it's interesting, is because one of them is kind of like it's the heart emotion of the artist and the vocalist, and the other one it's the embodiment of this amazing pop icon and
Mm-hmm.
bringing a performance to life. I think when you go and see any of the greats perform and deliver a choreographed show to that, to that level,
Yes.
it's amazing.
Yes, she's great. She's great. And your favorite male singer?
Similar, same deal. So I've always been obsessive over Michael Jackson. He's just like my be all end all, like to die for.
Mm-hmm.
So Michael is always going to be Michael to me.
Mm-hmm.
But from a vocalist point of view of who makes my heart melt, um, Luther Vandross for
Mm-hmm.
sure makes my heart melt. I still love Casey from Jodeci. His voice just drives me nuts. Um, so yeah, there's just I love a tone. Especially male tones, male singers. I think the reason why my voice ended up growing and why I've probably got more grunt in my voice now is
Mm-hmm.
from all the years of me singing along, trying to impersonate all these boys. I think it's ended up stretching my voice a bit. So, but there's just so many artists though. Like, I
Yes.
mean, being put on the spot, it's like, oh yeah, those are the ones that pop into my head. But I have some go-tos where I literally, there's some albums where I play them on repeat and I never get sick of them.
Yes,
You
I
know,
understand
just
that.
never get sick of them.
Yes. And your favorite female group?
Ooh, favorite female group. You got me thinking now. I'm probably going to say, oh wow. I'm going to say I loved TLC's very first album.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ooh on the TLC tip was groundbreaking, I felt at the time. I loved the vocals of En Vogue.
Yes.
Those
Mm-hmm.
harmonies are just insane.
Mm-hmm.
But from a pop perspective, of course, I loved the whole Spice Girls situation. Do you know what I mean? Like just, seeing those characters. I'd never seen anything like that at the time.
Yes.
Um, but look, I'm a real sucker for a real 90s R&B girl group, and those, I love a 3-4 part harmony
Mm-hmm.
on a
Mm-hmm.
track. So, 90s R&B girl groups like Jade and Vogue, SWV is another one. I loved SWV. And
Mm-hmm.
TLC from the perspective of throwing the rapper in as well. I miss those days, but I'm really glad that we're in an era where people are embracing the 90s R&B so much that we still hear it all the time. So that's
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yes. But yeah, you have a great taste, and you're not the first one to tell me about TLC. There's been other guests that love them. So yeah, I totally get
Yes.
it. And your favorite boy band?
Oh, Jodeci. That'll never change.
I'm sorry, who?
Jodeci.
Oh, okay, okay.
Jodeci are probably my favorite male band, and I'm very excited to see that they are regrouping
Hmm.
and to tour, and hopefully we'll get another album out of them. That'll be great.
That would be great. Yes. And one question I always ask is, if you are going to be alone in an island and you can only take 5 albums with you, which ones would you take?
5 albums.
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
just five.
Okay. 5 albums. I would do Michael Jackson's. Ooh, which Michael would I take? We'll go with Off the Wall. We'll do Michael Jackson's Off the Wall.
Mm-hmm.
Jamiroquai's Traveling Without Moving.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Janet's Rhythm Nation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason I'm picking these albums because these are ones I can play from start to finish and never skip. So,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Kaylani's Sweet Sexy Savage. I love that album. I played every song from start to finish on that. And number 5, Diary of a Mad Band by Joanne.
You have them very clear.
But I think I'd want 10. I feel like I'd need 10 because there's those like artists that I love, but then there's also the other genres of music like in disco and house and dance that I love. So
Mm-hmm.
I might have to make sure that I do my own compilation CD before I end up on this island.
Well, yeah, but you have them very clear because sometimes artists take like a lot of time to figure out like what. So yes, you were pretty.
I think those ones are clear only because I know that I can play those particular albums without skipping a song.
Okay, I feel you. I don't skip a single song from your album, so.
Oh wow!
Yes.
I'm very thankful. Thank you.
Joanne, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. I cannot tell you how much this means to me. Every time an artist answers me back, it's like heaven because I didn't grow up listening to your music, like I said, but 10 years ago, I discovered your music and it's been with me ever since. And I hope to be playing it to my daughter and that she grows up listening to your music. That would be amazing.
That is amazing, and I will make sure that when I've got some new stuff ready to go, that we get your daughter's seal of approval, and we'll, if her head's bopping and she's singing along, then I know I'm onto something.
It's been a real pleasure, Joanne, and thank you so much for your time, for taking your time of answering my DMs, and for being here. It means the world to me.
Thank you, and big love to everyone in Mexico City, and thank you to anyone watching who's been supporting my music. It really means the absolute world, and to you, it's been absolutely wonderful, and I'm glad that I saw your message. I'm glad that we've communicated, and I'm so thankful to have been a part of this. So thank you very much, and I look forward to touching base with you in the future and hopefully coming to Mexico City.
Yes, definitely. I will be waiting here for you, totally. And for everybody watching, thank you so much for being here. The interview will be available tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken. Sometimes it takes like an hour, a day to be uploaded, but it will be uploaded in a day probably. So, so for those who didn't watch it live, so yeah.
Amazing.
And thank you, Joanne. Please don't leave. I need to ask you something before I just end this broadcast. Okay. So thank you, everybody, and have a great night and day for those watching in Australia.
Bye.
Bye.